Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Titan Business Builders. And I'm so excited for our guest today because today we have Dr. Steve Yacovelli, also known as the Gay Leadership Dude, as our guest. Hey, Steve, how are you?
Hello, Stefan. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really exciting because if I see your online presence, I almost have a little bit of yeah starstruck. Like you're almost like really a famous person on the internet, or even beyond that. Because if I see your reach and your impact, it's really impressive. Congrats on that for sure.
Thank you so much. I will say I have been, my husband and I were on holiday in Key West twice, and people separately came up. They're like, "Aren't you the gay leadership dude?" I'm like, "Yes, I'm a minor celebrity."
Wow. Look at
Maybe like
that. Look at that. That's what's called branding, right? That's like
exactly.
really. So, Steve, you are the founder and the owner of TopDog Learning Group. Like, for anybody that doesn't know you yet, like in one sentence, what is it about?
So I like to think of Top Dog Learning Group as our doghouse sits in the center of three different but very complementary areas. We look at leadership and organizational development. We focus on diversity, inclusion, and creating that sense of belonging in the workplace. And we look at change management and being resilient in times of change. And we do one, if not all four of those in a variety of channels. We help folks take over looking at formal training classes, informal training classes, virtual, or face to face. Actually, I have my doctorate in distance learning, so I was like Zooming before it was cool. We do group coaching sessions, off the self solutions, and then straight up coaching with folks. We primarily work with large Fortune 500s, large not for profits, both here in the U.S. and in North America as well as beyond. So lots of consulting, but trying to make the world a bit more inclusive for us all.
That's great. That's great. Thank you for the explanation. I love the graphics that you've put together.
It's like I
That's
have a
cool.
doctorate in distance learning. It's crazy.
Yeah. And it's definitely good for our viewers that are here live. Welcome, everybody. If you have any questions for Dr. Steve, just put them in comments and we will make sure to put them in front of Steve. Now, Steve, the podcast, really every episode, we are going deeper into the whole story, your journey as an entrepreneur. Like
Mhm.
for you, I mean, you've built this business, you've built your reputation, your celebrity status over the across the multiple years. But how did it get started? Like how did you get into entrepreneurship? Like
Mhm.
how?
Yeah. It's like so many people who are entrepreneurs or small business owners. It started as a side hustle. It started as something on the side. And it wasn't even my idea, which is the best part. I was working at Disney. I spent several years as an internal leadership consultant, specifically with Disney Cruise Line. And I remember I was working with my colleague. I was actually taking her job. She was moving somewhere else, so I was kind of shadowing her. And we're on board one of the Disney ships, and she's like, "We should have dinner." I'm like, "Well, it's a ship. Of course we're going to have dinner." She's like, "No, let's go to the spa." I'm like, "Okay," because it's co-ed spa. So we're sitting there, and she's like, "We should start a business." I'm like, "But we have jobs." She's like, "No, we can you do training stuff on the side." And I'm like, "Okay." So we went back, finished the sailing, went back to our senior executive in HR and told her the deal. And she's like, "Thank you for telling me. Don't use Disney stuff. Don't use Disney time. Bon voyage, friends. Have a good time." We're like, "Okay." So we did this side thing for, we didn't do a whole lot. I think it was our excuse to drink a bottle of wine a week and talk training and all that. But, things progressed and I ended up leaving the company. She stayed and kind of worked her way up very high up in the food chain. But it was always that side thing. And then in late 2007, I found myself out of a job. And there's a whole other story with that. But I was actually living in France with her at the time, just kind of a brief little my husband's like, "Go figure your stuff out. I'll come get you in like a couple months." I'm like, "Okay." So I'm sitting there literally at a cafe. And if you're familiar with the French telecom L'Orange, orange, basically for those who don't speak French, it looks like my logo. It's just a big square orange. And I was looking at that. And I'm like, I could redo our TopDog logo. I can make this my full-time jam. And so that's what I did. In early 2008, I'm like, let's make this go, which was a horrible time to start a business in the world.
Mm.
But I made it a go. I got a couple of really good clients, which are still clients to this day, and really just started that journey as my full-time gig 14 years ago. And knock on wood, it's been a happy doghouse with some ups and downs ever since.
I love it, love it. But that's quite a story. I mean, you just moved to France for a couple of months and then realized that you have want to start your own business in 2008. And for people that don't know, that was a big crisis.
That's bad.
Um, I can only imagine like how scary that must have been. Like how did you navigate the mindset of just doing it and making it work while all of this is happening around of you, being in a different country, being apart with your husband, even like, how did you manage that?
Luckily, the living in France was just a temporary thing. It was really to help my at the time business partner. She got a job working in France, and I told her the deal, like, hey, I got fired. She's like, funny, I got a job at Disney for 3 years out in Paris. I'm like, she's like, well, come with me. And at the time, I was actually fairly fluent in French. I've lost it all now, but we used to do pretty well. And I was just going to go for a week, and that's when my husband beautifully said, look, go for a couple months, get your stuff together, and I'll come get you. And it was just this beautiful, like, I was so blessed to have this sabbatical, to really reset myself and really think, what am I going to do? And for a while, I was like applying for jobs online while I was, sitting in her beautiful apartment in the, near the Champs de Mars and all that stuff. But I really started thinking about, I have a business infrastructure. It was already there. It was just a halftime thing. Why not make it a full-time gig? And I think my naivety about the recession in 2008 probably played to my advantage, because I've just kept like plugging away, like, okay, tell everybody I'm here for business. And then I was looking for, one of the things that we do, of course, is stand-up facilitation. And so, as a trainer, and that's what I did for so many years, you can get a script and bring it to life for a client. And actually in the recession, a lot of bigger companies downsized their HR and their training department, but still had needs. So they were outsourcing it to people like me. So I actually got lucky there. And then I had a couple
Mm.
clients because of the recession. They're like, we can't afford to do this, in-person training anymore. Can you help us turn it into something self-paced and online? I'm like, of course I can. And so
Wow.
some of those big things were like kind of like floats that kind of buoyed the business for the first period of time. And then, things started progressing, and I got a couple of really big clients, which we became the certified leadership vendor for them. And it was all about relationships. It was all because of people I knew. And they're like, oh, you do good work. I'll bet you're going to do good work on your job. And that's kind of how it started to grow. And knock on wood, it's been fairly steady ever since.
So you actually found like almost place in the market that didn't exist yet, because 2008, I mean, if you think about it, online training now is like, yeah, normal, but in
Yeah.
2008 it was far from normal.
Yeah.
I mean, if I remember correctly, in that time, like even Facebook wasn't around yet as the
No.
way it is right now. So
Right. Right.
I mean, being online, and that's huge. That's a big differentiator for your competitors. I imagine that.
Yeah. What's funny though, Stefan, is even though we did a couple e-learning projects, all of our facilitation work was face to face, and so
Mm.
I didn't even have a learning management system at the time, and so we were just either myself or my team, my top doggers, as I like to call them, we were just flying all around North America doing training stuff. And
Mm.
so the nice thing was, by February, I knew where myself and the rest of my team were going to be for the rest of the year. Like, because we had to get all the schedules together. The client then has to advertise that internally to their people, get the training space if it's like a hotel or something. And so the nice thing is we were always planned, by February for the entire year. And then we'd start the planning process around, November or so. Well, COVID hit. So flash forward to now. And, in February, everything was set. Things start to unravel here in the U.S. And by the end of March or very early April, all of our biggest clients said, no, you're not coming here. So everything that I had was gone for the entire year.
Wow.
And so it was just like, Right. But the cool thing was going back to that distance learning thing, I was able to, once we were trying to figure out, like, is this going to go away in like 2 weeks, or what does that look like? And really start to think about, it's not going to go away. And so then going back to clients and saying, look, we can take that 3-day in person and turn it into a really engaging online experience. It's facilitated. We'll do breakout rooms. We have some cool tools that allow for interaction. And they're like, no, we're not there yet. This is going to still blow over. We're like, no, it's not. And then
Whoops.
by August, all of our biggest clients full circle came back like, yeah, we need to do something. And so then we got some development work for the end of 2020. And then it's actually been our biggest years progressively, because it's now all online, and it's cheaper, quite frankly, for the client. For the same budget, instead of doing 150 learners for our one client, we're doing 1,000. And it's still great content, still the same concepts. It's not in person, of course not. You'll never, ever, ever get that exact same feeling, just like going to a conference versus a virtual one. But we get pretty darn close, and it's really cool to see how learners have evolved. They're like, okay, I kind of like this, as long as you're making it engaging and enjoyable and learning. But also seeing from the operational perspective, I mean, my team loves it because they're like, I don't have to get on a plane. I'm like, nope.
Yeah.
Sit in your living room with your jammies. I don't care. As long as you look business from here up, you're good to go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that has shifted for a lot of people. And I think also since COVID hit, this is why technology exists as well. Like, if it wouldn't be for COVID, I wouldn't be here, because that was really for a lot of people in like a moment of awakening. Like, wait a minute. So the stuff that we have done for over a decade doesn't apply anymore. And now we have to shift to something completely new. And that completely new thing was actually where a lot of people were already like waiting for, but didn't really know where to go from there. So I think, yeah, it's COVID is a bad thing for sure, but at the same time, it created a lot of opportunities, just like you said, right? So
Yeah.
yeah.
And like this tool, for example, it was they beta tested it at the beginning of COVID. It's called I get no kickback from it. I'm not promoting it or anything. I just love it. And it's a great way to interact, and it makes it interesting and fun. And I always joke around and say I can do like I can do like old time photos, and I could do like witness protection programs so you don't know who it is, and help me, Obi-Wan, you're my only hope. And it makes it fun. And I think if you bring that to the virtual classroom or the leadership session or whatever we do, it makes people relax. It makes people enjoy. It makes people engaged. And that's kind of the brand that we have. I love in the description how you said my goofiness. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That is total brand on for all of us top doggers. It's kind of like one of the rules. You have to be playful. I mean, dogs, come on. You can't be playful without dogs. But it's really a way to engage learners, because learning can be boring online. Corporate leadership, they're like, oh my gosh, make it fun and engaging, but applicable to their job. And that's where you get the sweet spot.
That's a good tip for everybody within business. Like, if you really want to be distinctive, if you really want to be unique, then do something that your competitor isn't doing, maybe, or just apply your own personality. And this is what you did so brilliant. I mean, just the name by itself, like, okay, the gay leadership dude. It's not the gay leadership man or whatever, it's dude, right? And
Yep.
it's TopDog Learning Group. So again, congrats on the branding.
Thank
It's
you.
really good. How did you come up with the name, the gay leadership dude? Like, where did that come from?
It's kind of a cool story. So when I wrote my latest book, Pride Leadership Strategies for the LGBTQ Leaders Be the King or Queen of Their Jungle, I was actually going to write a quote unquote generic leadership book. I was at a conference here in the States in 2018, the National Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce. And it was my first time going, and I was excited. Lots of queer business folks doing businessy things. And I'm outside a session, and I'm sorting my business cards, and there's a woman next to me doing the same thing. And she's like, "What do you do?" I'm like, "Oh, consulting, blah blah blah. How about you?" She's like, "I'm a publisher." I said, "There's a leadership book in my head." She's like, "Let's get that book out." And so that's kind of how Pride Leadership started. But like I said, it was going to be a generic leadership book, but it's all the competencies, or at least the top 6 competencies that I've seen really either work for leaders who are doing them or not work for leaders. And it's, authenticity, courage, empathy, communication, relationships, and culture. Any leader out there, gay or straight, quite frankly, needs to nail these 6. If you do, you are golden. You are a rock star. You will nail it. And so I'm kind of starting to formulate the outline of the book. And then I start looking around at my queer brothers and sisters and siblings who are doing advocacy work, and I try to do a lot of advocating on behalf of the LGBTQ community. And then, Stefan, you remember Sex in the City, the first show? There's that
Yeah.
Carrie would sit down. She's like, I couldn't help but wonder. And that
Yeah.
kind of went off in my head. Like, I couldn't help but wonder, is being part of the queer family giving you an opportunity to exercise these 6 competencies just a little differently than our straight brothers and sisters and siblings? So, for example, authenticity. If you're an out gay man at work, you're a trans person being your authentic self in the workplace, that's power. That is beautiful, but it's also leadership power. So how do we just channel that energy of being authentic into being an authentic leader? And that's really what Pride Leadership really talks about, is helping leaders get there. So anyway, that's kind of how the book started. But Jen, my awesome lesbian publisher, she's like, we're going through the process of making the book, and she's like, well, what's your personal brand? I'm like, it's TopDog. She's like, no, that's your business. What's your brand? I'm like, I don't know. I have to think of one. She's like, you have to think of one. And so that's kind of how the Gay Leadership Dude was born. And what's been funny is she just started laughing hysterically when I told her, like, this is my personal brand. She's like, do you know what my personal brand used to be? I'm like, what? She's like, the professional lesbian. I'm like, yes. So it was kind of cool, but it really has resonated with people because, I'm sure listeners here and viewers will respect if you're part of the LGBTQ community. A lot of times we're constantly coming out, and sometimes it's exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
And so by being the Gay Leadership Dude, I already take it away. It's like literally out there, and you automatically know 3 things about me: that I'm gay, that I self-identify as a dude, and that I like leadership. I'm like, intro done.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting point indeed that if you build your own personal brand and you are known for that, it makes it indeed much easier for people to actually recognize you. Like you just said in the beginning, people even recognize you on the street and they say, oh, but you're the Gay Leadership Dude. Like you're not, oh, they don't come up and they say, well, oh, you're the owner of TopDog Learning Group. No, right? So I think that's a good point for a lot of business owners to also think about personal branding.
Yeah.
Because I can imagine, Steve, and correct me if I'm wrong, that even the leadership or the Gay Leadership Dude can at some point also pivot in maybe another business model or maybe another business by itself. But you still are the Gay Leadership Dude, right?
Yep. Yeah. And that's exactly how I explain it to folks, Stefan. It's like, TopDog, I could sell. I mean, I don't want to, but TopDog, it's not me. It is my team. It's my business. It's the resources we create. That's that brand. The Gay Leadership Dude is me. It can't be anyone else. And if you look closely when you see it, there's a circle R because I registered that puppy in the US. So at least here in the States, no one else can use that legally. So, but that's on purpose because I could go and start a new business. I can go and just retire, but I will always be the Gay Leadership Dude. And that wasn't by accident because I want that to be part of my personal brand and the advocacy that I'm trying to create.
Awesome. Yeah. And we got a question about that from Eddie. So a personal brand is something very important. Yes. Do you have any tips on how we can discover our own personal brand?
It's a really important question, and I'm by no means am a marketing expert, although that was part of my undergrad, which is oddly enough something I am using. But I think I go back to the authenticity concept. Whatever that brand is going to be, make sure it's authentic to you, because once it's locked in, you can't separate that, or it's really hard to separate that. So whatever feels right for you, I talk about TopDog. I didn't think about that. My colleague Ruth did, my business partner at the time. And, her last name's Bond. She's British. And, Bond and Yacovelli and Associates was just way too stuffy for us. And we like to have fun and really bring some humor to some serious conversations. And so that's where we're like, well, what do we like? And I didn't even have a dog at the time. And so she did. And so we're playing around with like, well, we both like dogs, and then that's kind of how the TopDog thing came about. And like I said, the Gay Leadership Dude thing, I mean, I'm a white cisgender gay dude. So there's who likes leadership. So there's kind of that. And but both of those are fun. They're playful. they're memorable, but most importantly, they're authentic to me,
Mm,
and at the time to my team for TopDog. And so I think whatever brand you land on, make sure that it really fits your authenticity.
awesome. Yeah, that's a great answer that right there. And a follow-up one is also from Eddie. Like being new in business, should we start off with an LGBTQ plus brand or should start off discreet until we are
Mm.
more established?
That's a really, really interesting question. And I think, I hate to say it depends, but I think there's some context that needs to be thought through first. Where are you in the world? And the implications of your outness or not in that context. I think that's something really important to think through, if nothing else, from a safety perspective. So there's that. Then I think too that is, will it help your business? I know for me, that's how people are remembering my brand. And so when they see the book, like, oh, but my name's pretty unique in the world, which is kind of nice. But they're like, oh, you're the gay dude. Fine, I'll take it. And once in a while, years ago, when I do a lot of learning conferences, people are like, you're the dog guy. I'm like, that's good enough. You're close. At least you got the canine thing there. But I think really being mindful and thoughtful, Eddie, of what happens, if I lead with that? Is it going to be a brand differentiator? Is it going to help you stand above the pack? No dog pun intended. Totally intended. I'm serious. But really think about, is that going to be your advantage, or is just your facet of diversity something you can kind of keep for later as you start working with businesses? So if depending on where in the world you are, I know there's some countries that have LGBT chambers of commerce. I know we have it here in the States and Canada. I know in the UK there's one with Matt. And if you register with those groups as a queer-owned business, does that get you advantages? Here in the States, yes, it does. And I am considered a minority-owned business. And that gets me a little bit into the door further than someone who's not a minority-owned business. And I think that can also be something to consider. You don't have to put it in your name, to be like, oh, I'm gay. But if even just registering as a queer-owned business is something that's an option for you within your respective part of the world, that's something to really consider.
Yeah, I think that's a good point there that you make about the fact that you don't necessarily need to put that in your name. Because I had a conversation earlier today with an agency owner, and he is part of our community, but he was also thinking about what name should I use. But I'm not targeting LGBTQ plus people
Yeah.
primarily, so there is no really a reason to put that in a name. But
Yep.
at the same time, like you said, Steve, is I am LGBTQ plus owned, so I can be part of something like the NGLCC to
Yep.
get the benefits that come with that. So I
Exactly.
think indeed, like you have to look at that two ways, like who are you targeting, and does it really matter,
Yep.
right? And at the same time, yeah, underlying, like yeah, for sure, connect with people around you that are also part of the community to make
Yep.
sure that you have something relatable.
Yeah.
That's
No, and I just to really jump on that too, Stefan. Like, I'm a white cisgendered dude, and so, but I teach diversity. I live and breathe diversity. I've been doing diversity for 20 plus years, and so by throwing the gay thing out there, it automatically identifies the hidden minority that I am. And that's important to me because if I'm going to have credibility as a diversity trainer, as a diversity coaching consultant, then someone has to know that I'm in one of those underrepresented groups, and it's automatically out there. It's not assumed. And that's actually worked quite well in my favor, especially when we go into a client, whether it's virtual or face-to-face, and most of the people in the room are, do you know the term voluntold to be there? Meaning they didn't want to be at the training. Someone voluntold them to go.
yeah.
Wink, And so, you have you have these people who are a little bit, have some animosity toward talking about inclusive leadership and unconscious bias and things of that nature. And so, I'm a white dude, but then I'm the gay thing. And there's some bit of relatability there, which I don't like that advantage or that privilege that I have, but it is what it is. And so let's
Yeah.
use it to make people open their minds and really think about the world in a more inclusive way as best they can.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, like you said, it's not about being white or being gay or being a dude that makes you the person or the business by itself, right? It's about what you do. I think that's really the basis of it. But you also mentioned in our questionnaire that we always send out before the talk that some of the other struggles that you had, Steve, was about finding focus, finding time, and finding trusted resources.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that, and how did you overcome that?
It's an ongoing process. No, I think if you are an entrepreneur and you're growing your business, a colleague of mine said years ago, she started her own business, diversity inclusion company 30 plus years ago. And so we've done a couple projects together. We have a couple online training programs we've created jointly. And she's like, at some point, you're going to have to make a decision whether you're happy with it just being you and maybe a few like outsourced folks here, like a bookkeeper or whoever, or you're going to really grow. And she's like, and you're going to get to that point and you'll know when you're there and you have to make that conscious decision. And I do remember when it happened. It was in 2017. Up until then, I was happy doing my thing. It was really me. I had a couple, I had the bookkeeper and the CPA and, the finance people to keep me out of trouble. But it was just me and it was fine. And I was making nice money. But then at some point in very early 2017, I said, you know what? I want to make a bigger impact on the world. I want the world to be more inclusive for all of us others who are out there. This was way before even I wrote the book. And I was like, that's my story. That's where the legacy that I want to leave. And that was where I shifted my frame of mind to be like, you know what, this business needs to grow. I need to have what I call my army of awesomeness, my top doggers who are going to go out and teach inclusive leadership and teach change management, resilience, and all those good topics that are so gorgeously timely right now. And that was that shift in just mentality alone is what really helped open up the focus and help open up the resources. And so then it's finding, okay, well, I need another top dogger who can do what I do, but in their own way. And I'm a big believer in God, universe, Buddha, Allah, insert bigger power here of your choice. And I think once you put it out there, if you listen hard enough, it's going to come back. And so that's what happened. One of my clients who is amazing, she's like, just randomly, like I was kind of like, yeah, I really want to grow. And I was on site with doing a training class for her company, and she's like, let's have wine. Okay, like, okay. So we went to a little happy hour, and she's like, I want to work for you. Like, what? She's like, I'm tired of working for big companies. I want to come work for you, like as a facilitator.
Wow.
I'm like, okay, that's perfect. Cause I knew her, we had a relationship. I knew she could train because we've trained together. And she used to run like these massive training functions at really big companies. So her knowledge and her network was awesome. So now she's my part-time head of operations for my business. And it's fantastic. But it's like those trusted resources, people who you like to play with, and you're like, yeah, let's make a go of this and see what magic we can do together. I think once you start listening and thinking about it, you're going to find those resources around there. But full disclosure, I'm still working on it because I'm hiring 2 more consultants right now. I'm trying to put the feelers out. So, really trying to figure out how to grow, but smartly grow as we kind of get a bigger doghouse.
How difficult was it for you to actually have to admit almost that, well, you can't do it all by yourself if you really want to grow, right?
Well, luckily, I teach. One of the things we teach in our leadership programming is on delegation, and so there's the phrase "physicians heal thyself," and really kind of taking a step back and reflecting on my own ability to outsource and to delegate, and really practicing what we preach within the leadership workplace. And so it's not always easy. I, for example, love making PowerPoint. I'm one of those nerds who I just make like pretty PowerPoints. It's my jam. I can do it while drinking a glass of wine and watching Netflix. It's just like after 30 plus years, it's just natural, easy for me to think in pictures. I need to not be doing as much of that, even though it is a brand differentiator. I need to somehow outsource that, but that's a pretty unique skill to find. Other things like, finding an awesome administrative assistant, that wasn't so hard to find. And it's just finding one that you can work with and you can document what you need done and kind of move forward with those types of things. So it takes practice, but once you start getting into that frame of mind, it gets pretty easy. And then you start thinking about all the things you want to outsource, which is kind of the fun part.
Yeah. That's definitely the point where you think like, oh my God, I can do so much more the things that I actually love to do instead of having to do everything, even the things that I don't like to do. And that's what it's all about by building, yeah, a scalable business. Would you say at a certain point it is a self-sustainable business?
It depends on cash flow, which I think is every entrepreneur's like challenge. Yeah, it is. It's I've learned to never count a client until there's a signed contract for the work that we do, and even the most beautifully heart-centered clients who love the work that we do, things happen. Several years ago, and actually it's one of the reasons why I wrote Pride Leadership when I did. One of our large Fortune 500 pharmaceutical clients, where we do all their leadership training in North America, they merged with another company. They bought another company, and it like doubled the number of leaders that we could teach. I'm like, yes, that's awesome. We just
Yeah.
doubled the number of students. But then they came back and said, you know what? We're excited for this. It's going to be great. We need to put a pause in all of our training and get our house in order. So we'll get back to you next year. And it's like,
Mm.
rats. So I found myself with a fall that me and one of my consultants who were doing most of that training, we had free time. So that's actually why I wrote Pride Leadership in the fall of 2018, because I had time because it was all blocked off. So that happens. I mean, that's just how business works. And so I think if you can think through diversifying your revenue streams, that's a smart thing to do. If you can find ways to create different channels that maybe weren't on your radar, i.e.
Mm.
COVID pandemic, going online and whatever that looks like. I was just, as the pandemic was starting, I was just launching my keynote speaking um, channel, if you will, because
Yeah.
I was waiting till I had the book done, and then the signature talks, keynotes that I had around inclusive leadership, being authentic, all these different things that are chapters out of the book. I had those all ready to go. I'm like, this is great. And then womp womp, COVID, and I think I had 9 keynotes already lined up for that whole year. And
Oh
all of them
no.
were like, no. And I said, you know what? I can do this virtually. They're like, really? I'm like, yeah. And I showed them my little green screen, my professional studio. That's what I do mostly now. And it's like, of course, June is like mega gay leadership dude month, which is lovely. But it just forced me to rethink, like, how do I deliver this story using this kind of technology in a different way and make it engaging and fun? And I think if you just keep those different channels open and find ways to keep them alive, you'll be sustainable.
That's great. That's good to know how you do it because I think a lot of business owners really need to think about it. And for me, it's something you need to think about from the beginning because you can build your own business for sure by just doing one thing for years and years and years. But you really want to build something self-sustainable so it's not just you. Anyway, Steve, I can talk about this topic and all the other topics for hours and hours, but we have to wrap it up a little bit here. And you have indeed your book, and you have a little bit of a present for our viewers and our listeners. So tell me what it is that you can give for our viewers.
Yes. So with Pride Leadership, obviously there's there's hard copy, soft copy, and if you go to steveonamazon.com, you can find all those. There's a workbook that goes with this. There's actually an 8-week online training program that we've created that's for queer leaders and awesome allies to go through. But we are offering a free copy actually of the audiobook of Pride Leadership, but I have to tell you how it came into being.
Okay.
It was already on schedule for spring of 2020, and I contracted an audio producer. So audiobooks are different production than your standard like paper book. And so I had a different publisher, audio publisher, and we were all ready to go. And the internet was just so crazy. We couldn't get good audio recording. So it's like I log in and then this engineer logs in and I read a chapter of the book and then he like makes the files all pretty and great. And then we kind of move on to the next one. And he's like, Steve, I'm not getting good audio. And I'm like, I'm hardwired into my router. It's not like any Wi-Fi thing. And he's like, well, you're just going to have to record it on your own. And just, send me the files and I'll clean them up and then we'll go from there. And I'm like, yeah, I've done voiceover work before. So I'm like, that's cool. He's like, just make sure you find the quietest place in your house. And if you're hearing some feedback, usually my neighbors' lawn people come on Wednesdays. They came early today. So sorry about that. But, finding the quietest place in the house, and of course was our walk-in closet. So my career leadership book was read in the closet, which I think is pretty funny.
That's a funny story for sure. And yeah, you're giving away like a copy, an audio copy of the book. And with this kind of coupon code, Lead on Rockstar, people can get it for free,
Yes.
right?
You just got to give me an
Awesome.
email. That's all you have to give me. And then you can hear me do solid leadership theory with awesome bad dad jokes all through the night, read by me.
Awesome. So, Lead on Rockstar, if you go to this URL right here and you use that coupon code, you're going to get a free audio copy of the book. Thank you very much, Steve, for your time. But before we go, I always end with one last question. So, Steve,
Yes.
what does success mean to you?
Ooh, for me personally, success is about legacy and making a change and leaving a lasting impression. So that when I'm long gone, somebody like, wow, that's Steve. That I really like that book, or he said something in that keynote that really resonated with me, or I went through one of his trainings through one of his top doggers, and it really changed how I approach inclusive leadership. So success for me is when we make an impact and it's a lasting impact that's still heard longer than when I'm around.
The perfect answer. Thank you very much, Steve. Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening. And yeah, next week we have another episode. So tune in then. Steve, again, thank you for your time. Go see Steve online. He's everywhere. The Gay Leadership Dude. Go find his book, read it, listen to it. There's a lot of stuff to learn from Steve. Steve, thank you again. And for sure, we will be back in a couple of months and see how you're doing then.
Excellent. Thank you, Stefan.
Thank you again. Have a great day, everybody. See you next time. Bye bye.